Hi, I'm Jenny Fish from One Big Happy Yarn Company. We want to be your local yarn shop no matter where you live. Thank you for joining us today for the Pure Fantasy Entrelac Scarf Knit Along. We'll be making this scarf here using the Noro Tsubame yarn. I hope I said that right. We'll also be using the pattern called Pure Fantasy. You can get the printed pattern and the yarn to make this scarf on onebighappy.com. Today's episode, we will be going over the supplies. We'll be going over the Entrelac technique. We'll cast on, and I'll show you how to make the foundation triangles that are called the bottom triangles that start this project out. Okay, so let's get started on the Pure Fantasy Entrelac scarf. Here we go. First thing we want to do is talk about the yarn. This Noro Tsubame yarn is all in one ball. They also call it a barrel. And I love this yarn because of the color variations. All the colors that you see in this scarf are in this ball of yarn. The way that they make this is that they actually dye the roving before they spin it so they can put the colors in specific places. On the tag here, on the label, under natural color, it says it creates an asymmetrical pattern and complex colors to mimic the beauty of nature that surrounds you. And I love that feel, that warmth that it gives to this line of yarn. It's 50% silk, 25% wool, and 25% polyamide that's a synthetic to give it some structure and strength. And the vibrance of the colors, the way it's spun, I just feel drawn to this. But it also works very well for changing of the colors in the scarf when we use the Entrelac technique. I also want to say that out there in the knitting world, people say Entrelac, Entrelac. There's like several different ways to say that. Use what you're comfortable with, because all of us out here in the knitting world that are familiar with this technique will know what you're talking about. You'll hear me switch because I'm trying to learn how to say the American version, which is Entrelac. So I'm trying to get used to that. But just wanted to give you a heads up that I may say that wrong occasionally, but it's not intentional. Okay, so now that we've got the yarn, we also are going to need our knitting needles. And for this project, I'm using US size 7. It's a 4.5 millimeter. I choose to use circular needles, but you can use straight needles for this project because it is knitted flat. The cord size, you can use anywhere from 16 to whatever you're comfortable with. I am using 24-32. I like the longer cord on here. So that's a personal preference for whatever you like. Those are the supplies that we're going to use to get started. I also want to talk about the kit on our website. It comes with a printed pattern along with the yarn. We have several different colors of yarn to choose from. When you're on the website, underneath of the project, there's going to be little boxes for all the different colors. You can click on that box and then add the kit to your cart and it'll choose that color. Or on the right-hand side, you'll see the word color, and underneath that is a box that has a drop-down menu, and you can choose the word for the color. It gets a little confusing. If you have any problems, don't hesitate to leave a comment below or contact our customer service department. Let's take a moment to talk about the Entrelac technique. It's a form of knitting triangles and rectangles, and it's a modular knitting technique that when you knit these together, they form like a basket weave pattern. Okay, so here are the foundation triangles, the bottom triangles that we start out with. Then we have tier 1, and you have your left and your right triangles along with your rectangles in the center. Then tier 2 is just rectangles. You continue these two portions here until you get to the end, and then we'll finish it off with the final row of triangles to the top triangles that are also work as your bind off. So in the pattern, there is diagrams everywhere with little arrows that show you which way you're going, which section you're doing next. I love the fact that we put those in this pattern to guide us as we go along through the Entrelac technique. Okay, so now we're ready to cast on. I've got my pattern keeper here, and I've already set up with my pattern inside. We're going to cast on 28 stitches. Now for this, you can use whatever cast on method you prefer. I'm going to be using the long tail cast on. I'm also going to use the 2 needle method because I really like that because it really makes my stitches even on the needles. It's great for beginners so you don't get too tight of stitches when you're casting on. It's a personal preference on this project. It doesn't make that much of a difference. It's just what I'm going to use. You start off, we're going to be casting on 28 stitches. So I've got about a yard here. Make my slip knot. You can always use the wind method to find out exactly where to start, whatever you're comfortable with. And here we go. So I've put my slip knot on my needles. Now, because the magic number for this pattern is 7, I'm going to cast on 7 stitches and then place a stitch marker. And I'll do that throughout the 28 stitches. So I've got 2, 3, 4. And again, we're using the slingshot method where we pull back, go under the thumb, under the index finger, and back through. That's 5, 6, 7. Now, because I'm not putting a beginning stitch marker or a right side, wrong side stitch marker, I always like to use a different color. I'm going to use this soft, it's from Clover, it's the soft ring stitch marker. I'm going to use the green one first, then I'm going to cast on 7 more stitches. Got my 7 there. And now I'm going to switch to purple for the rest of them. So I've got 14. I'm going to cast on 7 more. And 7. Okay, so now I'm going to cast on, or I'm going to slide on my last stitch marker. This is going to separate each of our triangles that we're going to do on the next row that we go into to start our bottom triangles, which are the foundation of the scarf. So by putting these stitch markers in at this point, when we get to the next row, it'll already be marked out for us. Okay, so I need 7 more. 1, 2, and again, sometimes your yarn will get caught between the 2 needles. Just pull it out and start over. You want to make sure that your cast on is going around both needles. So about 4. Oops, there it goes again. You want your tail towards your body, you're working yarn out, slingshot method, 5, 6, and 7. Gauge on this project is not essential. What you want to aim for is 24 stitches in 4 inches. But because this is modular knitting and you're knitting a triangle here and a rectangle there, it's not, you don't have to be exact. Just try to aim for that area. Okay, so we've got our cast on. We're going to turn around, and now we want to start our bottom triangles. And before we get started on that, I want to give you guys a visual of what it's going to look like because it does look strange. It's not your typical knitting where all of your stitches are going to be across your needle all at once. Instead, you're going to be making these little triangles. And it looks real jumbled on your needles. It's okay. It's what it's supposed to look like. When you pull it out, you'll see that it's a triangle shape and all of your active stitches are on the side of one triangle, and then it's connected at the bottom. There's another triangle. We're building these triangles by using short rows, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But I just wanted to give you that visual. This on the, let me pull it out where it is on the scarf. This is where we're starting right here. We're creating these triangles right here. There's our cast on, and now we're going to make those. Okay, let me put this away here for a second. And in my pattern keeper, I have my pattern in here. I have my magnetic little, I don't know what this is called, but it helps you keep track of your row. So I'm going to slide it on here. I also have a row counter for backup. This is the Clover Mini row counter, and you click it for each row, and then it has these little wheels on the side. So right now I've got it at 0. I'm on row 1. I like to click it when I've finished a row, so that way when I come back I know what's already been done and what I need to do. I've got my magnet under row 1, and now I'm ready to start. Even though I'm using circular knitting needles, I'm still knitting flat, so it's row by row. Now, because I cast on with 2, I need to pull 1 out, Now this is back to looking a little normal for us. Okay, row 1 is super simple. It is knit 1 and then turn. So we knit that first stitch, and now we leave all the rest of these these stitches on the needle, and then we turn. We click our clicker, and we slide our little guide down, and row 2 is purl 1. So that stitch that we just knit, we are going to purl. We're going to click our clicker, slide our marker down here. Row 3 is slip 1, knit 1, and turn. So I'm going to slip the first stitch. I'm going to knit the next stitch. Now I'm also going to put, you guys seen me do this before, I'm putting a knot in my tail so I don't keep grabbing it by accident. It's just a textural thing that I like to put in there so that I don't grab it. Okay, here's my working yarn. I've slipped 1, now I knit 1 and turn again. Now I purled those 2 stitches back. I'm going back and forth, adding a stitch to my working side each time and building up these short rows. So on here, this is where I'm at right here. We're building this area up right here, going back and forth. Okay, so we are on row 4 now. So row 4 is purl 2 and then turn. So I'm going to purl 1 and 2 and turn. Click my clicker. And now we are on row 5, which is slip 1, knit 2. And at this point, you're going to start to see a little bit of a pattern. I slip 1, I knit 1 from what I've been working on, and then I knit 1 more from the one resting on my left needle, and then turn. Then we click. Now we are purling 3. It grows by 1 each time we turn back to the purl side. Okay, now we're going to turn this way. Now we're on row 7. So we slip the first one, and then we are going to knit 3. So we knit 2 from the little piece that we were working at here, and then 1 from the stitches on the left needle that we haven't touched yet, incorporating that into our triangle. And then we're going to turn again and purl back. So now, last time we purled 3, this time we're purling 4. We keep going until we have all 7 of our stitches, which is up to that stitch marker on the left needle. It looks really wonky, and that's normal. It'll work its way out as we continue to go along. So click our, and now we are on slip 1, knit 4. So we have 4 stitches over here. We're going to slip the first one, and then we're going to knit 4. So we knit 3 from our area that we've been working on. You'll see this little gap here. We're going to jump over and we're going to knit 1 more from the side that we haven't started yet. Then we turn again. And now we are purling 5 back. The great thing about this pattern, 7 is the magic number. You'll hear me say that a lot. All of our sections build up to 7 stitches. Okay, so we're going to purl those 5. And turn. In using this technique, the Entrelac technique, you turn back and forth quite a bit. Each little knit, the right side and the wrong side. So you have the knit side where you will knit to a certain point and then turn. It feels a little weird for people that are used to just knitting back and forth through all your stitches. Don't worry, that's how this technique is that you knit a little, turn, knit a little, or purl a little, turn back and forth. There's a lot of turning, so don't hesitate on that, or don't feel like you're doing it wrong. That's what you do here. So we slip the first one, and now we are going to knit 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 from here. That makes 5. So now we have 6 on here because we slipped the first one. We are now on 11. Well, that was 11. That's a good way to check yourself. When you count and you're like, wait a minute, I got 6 here. Now I got to purl back 6. That's a great way to kind of check your pattern and make sure you're on the right row, because it says purl 6. I've got 6 here. That's what I have to purl. So we'll go ahead and purl those 6. It's a great check, like to check yourself. Make sure that you have where you're at by reading your knitting. And then to read your knitting, you want to look and see your right side is going to be these V's. That's your knit stitches. That's the right side. The bumps are your purls, and that's the back side. When you're doing modular knitting, you are flipping from front to back, so it's good to get to be familiar with what's the right side and what's the wrong side. So now we're on row 13. I'm going to slip 1, and we are going to knit 6. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now I've hit that stitch marker. I have the magic number of 7 on my needle here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We look at my pattern. I'm on row 13. So now it's time to go back to row 1 for this next section. That's the great thing about this magnet right here, is that it will slide with you. You can move it around, and it holds your work in place, helps you keep track of what row you're on. I'm going to reset my row counter to 0. Because we are starting again on the next section. Whoops, I went right past it. There we go. There we go, 0. Okay, so we've done the first triangle. That's this section right here. We've hit our stitch marker. We can now take that off, and now we are going to start the next section. Do it exactly the same as we just did it. Start off with row 1, where we knit 1, turn, and continue on. So once you finish all 4 of these bottom triangles that are separated by your stitch markers, it's, like I said, it's going to look a little funny. Let's bring this out and show you again now that you have a little bit of reference. This is what we just did. This is what it'll look like when you've got this first set of bottom triangles finished. Don't worry. In the next episode, we'll go over how to do tier 1, where we show you how to do the right and left triangles along with the center rectangles, and tier 2, where we do the next row of rectangles. And then we'll finish off with the top triangles that bind off and finish the scarf. But wait, there's more. I have a little secret for you. It's called backwards knitting. You can go ahead and flip your work back and forth all you want, but there's a trick that'll save you a little bit of time, and it's called backwards knitting. It's basically knitting left-handed for us right-handers. Let me show you how that's done. I'm at this point here where I need to purl back these 6 stitches. Instead of turning my work, I can knit backwards. I'm going to show you how that's done. I'm going to go ahead and slide my left needle into the stitch, the back leg of that first stitch that's on my right needle. I'm going to wrap the yarn around and pull it back. Now, essentially, I've just purled that stitch, but it's facing me instead of having my work turned. Let me show you that again. You slide your left needle through the back stitch on your right needle, wrap, and pull through. Do this all the way back. This is called backwards knitting, and it will save you a lot of time once you get the mechanics of it, once your muscle memory kicks in, because at first it's a little backwards for us right-handed. You left-handers, you probably have already knit like this for a while, but this is how we do that. We stick it in, wrap the yarn, pull out, stick the left needle into the right needle through the back leg of the stitch, wrap toward yourself, and, whoops, let me try that again. Stick it on here, wrap it around. There you go. Now I've just essentially purled those 6 stitches back. Now I'm on the front side of my work, or the right side of my work again. Slip the first stitch, go back to knitting as normal, and finish this row out. Only do this if you feel comfortable. You don't have to. It's just a little trick I wanted to show you. That's how we do it. If you want to finish this entrelac scarf, what you need to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the bell to be notified, and you'll get a notification when we release the next episode of the Pure Fantasy Entrelac scarf.